And we do now have audio from the Las Vegas Police Department of the moments when officers breached Paddock's room.
And sit on the suspect's door. I need everybody in that hallway to be aware of it and get back. We need to pop this and see if we get any type of response from this guy to see if he's in here or if he's actually moved out somewhere else.
Copy. All units on the 32nd floor. SWAT has explosive breach. Everyone in the hallway needs to move back. All units move back.
Breach. One suspect down in 135, 432 Mandalay Bay. I have the floor.
Undersheriff Kevin C. McMahill with the Las Vegas Metro Police joins us on the phone. Undersheriff, thank you so much for joining us. As we just heard from that audio, as soon as police stormed the room, they knew that the gunman had been dead and from a self-inflicted wound, correct?
Yes, you are correct.
Can you talk more about what the police discovered in his room? There were 10 long rifles, guns that were reported to be found?
Yeah, so there's as we sit here today, right now as we're speaking, we have just recently obtained the search warrant for the suspect's room. We have made entry into the room, and we are now, of course, one of the things in these types of circumstances that you have to watch out for is booby traps for law enforcement. So we have to do a very slow and methodical in that room. I can confirm to you that there are at least 10 rifles, some spotting scopes that go along with those rifles. And there's a lot of other stuff in there, but it's premature for me to tell you exactly what it is yet because I don't know either. But I can confirm to you that there are many extended rounds as well as rifles and ammunition in that room.
Kevin McMahill, what can you tell us about the circumstances? Listen, just listening to that audio, I thought it was extremely dramatic. We have heard from other law enforcement officials that people were led to the room because they saw the muzzle flash. Other people say they were led to that room because the smoke detectors went off and it was creating a loud disturbance. Can you tell us what exactly led your team to that room?
Yeah, I have not yet heard the piece on the smoke detector, but that certainly could be true. I do know that there were a number of officers across the street at the event that was taking place. They were able to actually hear the rounds being fired as well as to look up and see that the suspect was firing from the particular 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay. So a number of responding officers went over there immediately. There was a lot of confusion, as you can imagine, so it took a little bit to get to that room. But as soon as they were able to isolate that room and identify it, they did an immediate explosive breach on it, went in, and he had shot himself.
Kevin, how many rounds do you believe the shooter got off?
You know, I really don't know, but I would have to guess it has to be in the hundreds with the amount of people that are both dead and wounded. We continue, just about every hour that goes by, we continue to get notified of individuals that self-transported to hospitals. Every one of our local area hospitals is pretty much maxed out as far as their casualties, and so we continue to look at that. I can tell you, along with that, there were a number of the police, fire, EMS worked very well together here in this event, but you also had a number of civilians that would just pick people up in their vehicles and drive them right over to the hospital, and so you have a lot of that self-dispatch and self-transport to area hospitals as well. And so, the numbers are going to continue to fluctuate in the coming hours. And I think we'll be able to, late this afternoon, have a better idea of the entirety of those dead and injured.
Kevin, did he cut out the window in the hotel room? Did he shoot it? What happened?
I believe what I've been told at this point is that he shot out through the window. So that was how he was able. You have to kind of imagine his vantage point, the way that the building is set, and for what he was looking at specifically across Las Vegas Boulevard in an open air environment where 23,000 people were packed in, enjoying a concert before he unleashed his carnage.
Do we know if he checked into the hotel under his name?
We believe he did, yes.
What can you tell us, Kevin, about your department? Listen, this is very traumatic just as lay people watching it, and we've heard from the eyewitnesses how traumatic and chaotic it was for them. We've also learned that an officer has been killed. What can you tell us about your officers and listening to that very dramatic audio, how they're doing, how they're feeling right now? I know it's a job, I get that, and you have to be stoic, but what are you all saying amongst yourselves?
You know, to be very candid with you, we really haven't had an opportunity to sit down with one another to pause long enough to figure out what it is that we want to say to one another. But no doubt, you know, losing 50 people on our watch is not something that we take very lightly. And what I can tell you, though, from my own personal observations, is that our officers acted very heroically in this particular event. They saved a lot of lives. They were able to get people out of the line of fire, get them behind a large block wall that was there. I think these stories will take a number of days to really for us to sort these things out. And, you know, I'm really not all that interested in that piece of it just yet. What I'm particularly interested in is you know, keeping our thoughts and prayers with these victims and their families as the hours continue to come through.
Kevin, what have you been able to find from the Mesquite residence, the retirement community where Stephen Paddock lived?
Well, what I can tell you about all state, local, and federal systems have been checked, and we have not found any derogatory information. In other words, we haven't found anything that would indicate to us why he took the actions that he took. Obviously, that's a huge part of this investigation. We need to determine, you know, what this guy's motive was, what was his plan, how long he'd been planning it, all those types of things. I'm not aware. I do know we are at the Mesquite residence. Obviously, it takes a little while to get up there from Las Vegas. About an hour drive, and so we got them up there, and we continue to. We have the appropriate teams up there, and so as they make entry in there, we'll hopefully discover a number of things that can help us answer some of these questions.
Yeah, we understand that this is a very fluid situation, but we do know this, that he was 64 years old, that he lived in a retirement community. So, Kevin, when you hear that, what did you make of that when you heard that piece of information about this suspect who is now apparently committed suicide?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. It really, I mean, you know, none of it really makes sense. And you know, trying to see those things that maybe we should have known, maybe we could have caught. Right now, there's no indications of that. A 64-year-old man goes on a homicidal rage and kills over 50 people. You know, you want to have the answers to those questions. We intend to get those answers the best we can, but it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Is the Mandalay Bay Hotel being fully cooperative with investigators, and what have they told you? What have you found out about his behavior? We know he's checked into the hotel since September 28th.
Yeah, the Mandalay Bay has absolutely been very cooperative with us. We enjoy those relationships here in Las Vegas anyway. They have a significant number of cameras, as you well know. We continue to go back through all that video evidence that we possibly can in a hurry here, trying to determine, you know, whether or not, early on, whether or not he was a lone actor or not. And so we've had great level of participation, not only from the hotel casino industry across the board, but all of our local law enforcement, police, fire, and EMS have just worked together really, really well. Like I said before, we trained for this. It's still something that you hope is never going to happen. It happened now, and now we need to figure out why.
Well, you mentioned that you trained for it, but you certainly, I would imagine, don't think it's going to happen at a country music festival headlined by Jason Aldean. How are you processing that part of the story?
Yeah, you're right. Listen, as you well know, Las Vegas hosts a significant number of special events. Really, almost there's not a day that goes by that we don't have something large going on here in Las Vegas. So we have a lot of experience with these types of events. And in fact, I wouldn't necessarily even call this event a large event for our city. But I can tell you that I don't know how you train for a man with automatic rifle fire from the 32nd floor of a casino that's firing down into a very large crowd across the street. So obviously we've got to go back to the drawing board on a number of these things, but you we got a long way to go on that. And I just make that point, though, is the citizens that were there and the police that were there, they all worked very well together to save lives.
You're looking at live pictures right now. Kevin, as we speak to you on the air, our viewers are seeing pictures of that window that was apparently shot out on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay casino. Those pictures coming in via helicopter. Kevin, we know that you've located now Stephen Paddock's wife, who was out of the country. Has she been able to give you any information?
Not as yet. We are actively working to contact her, and we will continue to work at that and see also whether there's other family members that we can receive any information from as we continue in the investigation.
So just so I understand, you located her out of country, but you haven't spoken to her yet. Where do you think she is?
We know where she is. I'm just not prepared to share that information just yet.
Well, we heard you say that Stephen Paddock used his own ID to check into the hotel. There have been reports that he used his wife's ID for other things. Do you know how his wife's ID was used in this particular story?
The only thing that I'm aware of any identification being used was that there was a gaming club, slot club, that casinos use, and that he at one point was using that card to gamble with. So that's the only piece of identification evidence that I'm aware of that even comes close to what you're asking.
So he's been gambling in the past few days at the hotel?
Yes, we know he's been gambling.
Do we know if housekeeping has entered his room throughout his stay?
Nope, that's one of the questions that we're trying to get answered. Obviously, we want to know how we got those rifles up there, and so we'll continue to look into that information as well.
So what's the next step in your investigation? We know this is a very big crime scene and you have a lot of people to interview. What are the next steps for your department now to start investigating this particular incident?
Well, as you can imagine, and as you alluded to, this is a very large crime scene with potentially, upwards of 23,000 witnesses. And so we're in the process and have been interviewing hundreds and hundreds of victims. We're setting up a number of hotlines so that people can provide video to us, a lot of cell phone video, that type of stuff. But I think the biggest challenge for us right now is with the significant number of deceased as well as injured individuals, reconciling the families with those that are still living, and a number of folks are still currently in surgery, and so we're trying to make sure that we have respect for those victims and their families, and reunite with one another with that. Meanwhile, you have a significant effort from an investigative standpoint in our partnership with the FBI and local law enforcement here. And we continue to go through and anticipate that will take us well into the evening before we're able to wrap up the actual various different crime scenes.
And tourism and business events is a major part of the economy there in the city. You talk about even 22,000 isn't the largest number for a crowd size that you cover there in Las Vegas. How prepared is the city going forward tomorrow, tonight, where you still have concerts scheduled and you still have many people at different hotels there for different events?
Yep, you're right. And obviously, the next couple of days, we have to make sure that we have a sense of security here in our city. So we've actually mobilized on our 12-hour shift rosters. So I have a significant number of officers available, and we'll continue to work on that. And not only has other local law enforcement stepped up to the plate to assist us, but the FBI as well. So we're fine when it comes to that, and we'll be prepared should an event happen again.
Kevin, is there any other information you can give us about the citation that Stephen Paddock received or any of his encounters or conversations with local police?
I can confirm to you that he received the citation. I actually didn't even ask what it was for, but what I was told about it is it doesn't have any impact on, it didn't leave any impact on the officer who issued that citation. So I believe it was for speeding, is what I'm being told, but it really didn't stick out in anybody's mind, and even I can't recall actually as I'm sitting here, what year he was even given that. So.
Yeah, the word we heard from Sheriff Joe Lombardo was no information was derogatory. And kudos to Sheriff Joe Lombardo. What can you tell us about him? Certainly, you know, he's a local enforcement guy who all of a sudden is put on a national stage.
Yep, the sheriff's in his third year here as the sheriff, and they're elected to 4-year terms, and this is never one of those things in law enforcement that you ever want to be thrust onto the national stage with. But I agree with you. I think he's handling it masterfully, and the men and women of the organization have just served with great pride and great valor, and you know, it really reflects when you see. And as the story continues to develop, I think you'll be really impressed by a number of things that not only law enforcement did, but the citizens as well to save lives out there.
Well, Undersheriff, as Sheriff Joseph Lombardo said, nobody is paid to do what we are experiencing right now. You're having to suffer and to grieve. You've lost as well in your community there while protecting others who were at that concert. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.